Perhaps only rivaled by the likes of Sherlock Holmes and Dick Tracy when it comes to popular detectives, nobody can deny that Scooby Doo has given the phrase mystery solving a whole new meaning. With dozens of TV shows and possibly hundreds of movies under their belt, in addition to all the other merchandise, it's quite possible that the Mystery Gang has solved more mysteries than any other real-life or fictional person. But there seems to be one mystery in particular that tends to stand out from the rest. And that would be the direct-to-video movie that is sometimes hailed as what brought the franchise back to prominence, Scooby Doo on Zombie Island. Considered by some to be the greatest thing to ever come out of the franchise, this movie took Scooby Doo to some truly dark and scary places, more so than it ever had before. But some have also argued that maybe it's a little too much for children when you really take what's shown into account. And today, I'd like to explore if this movie really might just be too scary for children. And there will be spoilers for this movie ahead, so in case you haven't seen it yet and don't want to know what happens, you should definitely click off this video and come back to it another day. This will be the only warning I'll be giving out. So to start at the beginning, one thing that Scooby Doo on Zombie Island definitely does right is in how it mixes old and new elements together. Which is to say, it keeps the essence of Scooby Doo intact while also managing to add different things to it. And as many experts on the subject, which I admittedly am not, have argued, that's the best way to keep a long-running franchise alive. To not be afraid to add new elements, or even get downright subversive on a few things, but to always stay true to what that franchise is. And once again, Scooby Doo on Zombie Island manages this delicate balance extremely well. Plenty of the usual Scooby Doo tropes, especially when it comes to the Great Dane himself and Shaggy, are just as present as ever. But there are also plenty of things that don't take the normal Scooby-Doo route. And the best, and most obvious, example of this would be the reveal that the monsters are actually real, and it's even worse than it initially appears. Now some would argue that this misses the whole point of Scooby-Doo, as a very important aspect to it is not only solving the mystery, but to prove to kids that monsters aren't real by always having it turn out that there's somebody in a costume. But that's not exactly true, because for one thing, there had already been Scooby-Doo stories told before this that contained real monsters, if not usually in the best ways. And second, the moral of the monsters always being people in costumes was never the point of Scooby-Doo. It was always about the fun and the mystery. Just having it turn out that the monster is actually an ordinary person makes it easier to tie up loose ends in the episode format Scooby-Doo was usually told in, as well as make it easier for the mystery to be solved and have fun with it within a similar time frame. And with a longer runtime, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island is allowed to tell a much more ambitious story, where this time nothing can fully prepare the characters or viewer for the horrible truth. Now again, this movie sticks to the core of Scooby-Doo by having plenty of fun and mystery, but goes about telling it in a very different way. Because in this case, once it's time to solve the mystery, the fun stops almost completely, and the stakes suddenly shoot higher than they ever have before. But this is where the question must be asked. Does it take these ideas a little too far for a kids' movie? I mean, there's tension building all throughout this movie. The ghosts' appearances let you know that something is up. And then Scooby-Doo and Shaggy encounter the rotting corpse of a dead pirate that comes back to life and chases them in a pretty graphic fashion, all things considered. Then, towards the end, seemingly hundreds of zombies rise up, and even though they're most definitely tame compared to R-rated zombie movies, to a child they might just be the most freaky, horrifying things they've ever seen. And then the reveal that the two seemingly friendly women are actually murdering soul drainers who start transforming into hideous cat creatures on screen, followed by a friendly old man who does the same. And let's face it, in his case, the terrified reactions of Shaggy and Scooby, though warranted, do nothing to help calm the atmosphere. But arguably the worst part might just be the story of how all of this started. First, the scary pirate terrifies a bunch of innocent people and forces them into gator-infested waters, all the while you get to hear their terrified screams and the horrified reactions of the only survivors. I mean, they may not show anything, but the implications are crystal clear, even to a child. And then you get more implied violence with their first transformation and the pirates' terrified cries, as well as get to see more innocent people react the same way, being accompanied by an unsettling, foreboding narration all the while. And finally, there's the little revelation that the zombies exist in the first place because their souls are unable to move on to the afterlife, having been used to sustain these monsters, and that all they can do is try to spare other people the same fate. Honestly, is this a Scooby Doo movie or something out of Stephen King's worst nightmare? Because you have to admit, this can be a bit much for children, especially younger ones. I mean, the zombies on their own are bad enough, but if you ask me, it's the flashback and subsequent reveal of the cat creature's evil deeds that take the cake, to the point that it might even creep out adults. Seriously, eternal enslavement of the soul, innocent people obviously sent to their horrifying deaths at the hands of alligators, the imagination filling in the gaps of the horrible deaths all those zombies must have faced, and those transformations. My gosh, the transformations! And their deaths can also inspire a couple of nightmares as well. Okay, so the point here is, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island is obviously pretty scary, but that still doesn't answer if it's too scary for kids. Because as I've argued in other videos, it's okay for movies to scare children, but does this one just go too far in doing that? And to be honest, it's pretty hard to say. I mean, I'd almost place this movie on the same level as Coraline in its ability to scare, because I'm pretty dang sure that both these movies are capable of keeping adults up at night, forget about children. But I'd say the key difference here is that the scares in Coraline are serving a purpose in getting the moral of the movie across, as I argued in my video What Makes Coraline Such an Effective Kids Movie, which you can find a link to in the description in case you'd like to check it out. But to simplify it here, the scary elements in Coraline serve a purpose and are very integral in sending its message. While in Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, the biggest moral I can really get from the scares is, be careful what you wish for. Basically, I don't know if the movie really needed to be this scary in order to be the new take on Scooby-Doo the writers were clearly going for. Because, once again, the final act is pretty terrifying, and I think it might just be too much for kids to handle. I mean, sure, the ending ensures that the villains are defeated and everything is alright, but does that really soften the blow after some of the stuff that went down? Because it's one thing to scare kids with a movie, but it's another thing entirely to traumatize them. But either way, Scooby Doo on Zombie Island is most definitely a good movie, and even a good Scooby Doo movie. There is no question about that. I just don't know if it makes for the best kids movie. Because even if you personally think it's perfectly suited for children, you have to admit it tackles some pretty scary and adult subjects, and doesn't do much in some particular instances to hide the implications of its rather dark story. Alright, that's all I've got on that. So now I'd like to hear from all of you. Do you believe that Scooby Doo on Zombie Island is too scary for children, or do you believe it's just fine for them? Please feel free to let me know in the comments below. And please keep in mind, you don't have to agree with any opinions expressed in this video. You can think I've got everything I said absolutely backwards if you want to. And thank you all for watching. It's all very much appreciated. And I hope to see you all next time.